Hi guys, it's Lucy and today I'm here to do my April wrap-up. In the month of April, I read 6 books and 3 of those books were on my pretty ambitious April TBR. The majority of those books were actually read during the first week of April because I participated in a readathon, the April-a-thon readathon, and I have a full weekly reading vlog of that week. So those books I won't go into too much detail. If you want more detail, you can check out that reading vlog or my Goodreads reviews. I also participated in a second month-long readathon, which was the Owls Magical Readathon. I ended up completing 2 owls, which is a far cry from the 5 that I wanted to complete, but 2 is still a passing grade. It is an acceptable, but that's fine. It's acceptable. I'm so funny. Anyway, so I'll mention which books fit the 2 challenges that I did end up completing for that readathon. So first I'll talk about the books that I read for the April-a-thon. I read 3 books, but I did complete all the challenges. You can see more of that in the video that I mentioned. The first book that I read was Long Way Down by Reynolds. This is a story told in verse about a boy whose brother gets shot, and then we follow the boy as he gets in the elevator to his building as he goes to take revenge, and it takes place entirely in the elevator ride. It's a pretty short book because it is told in verse and it's like 300 pages, 200 pages maybe. I ended up giving this 4 stars. I enjoyed it. The verse I think didn't really do much for me, but when it worked, it really worked. And I think that the book did a good job of taking on toxic masculinity and like how it affects Black boys in particular. So I think it's important for that and I would recommend it if you have a Black teenage boy. Next I read Ask the Passengers by A.S. King. This follows a girl named Astrid Jones who's coming to terms with being a lesbian in a small town where that's really not accepted, and she has to kind of come out to herself and her family and her friends, and we just follow that. I really enjoyed this book. I gave it 4.5 stars. I did not expect to enjoy it as much as I did, honestly. I don't know, I just had like a really good time reading it. I don't know how to explain it. Most of the characters are unlikable, including the main character, but I did think that most of them did have redeeming qualities. I liked that her family wasn't really a good family because not everyone has like amazing family dynamics, and I think that representation is still there because I feel like if your family isn't like all flowers and daisies, then you can feel left out, especially in terms of the media. Like it's either your family's dead or your family is like super amazing, and that's not always the case. Sometimes people just have like okay families who are like around but not really that good, and like this showed that. And I can't speak to the representation because I'm pretty sure that A.S. King is not a lesbian, so I don't know how well it's done, but for whatever it's worth, I thought it was done pretty well, and I haven't seen any reviews that say it's done terribly or anything. This also has a fabulous aspect where Astrid can like talk to the people who fly above her house in planes. So it has like that kind of aspect, and you kind of see the people that she's like sending love to or whatever she's doing, and I don't know, I really enjoyed that aspect. Gemina by Kristoff and Amie Kaufman. This was a reread for me. This is the second book in the Illuminate Files trilogy. I did a full video review on this book, and basically all my opinions from that video still stand, so if you want to check that video out, I'll link it down below and somewhere on the screen. I listened to the audiobook, which has a full cast, as most people figured out by now. The audiobook was amazing as expected. And the last book that I read for the April-a-thon was How to Be a Boss by Lilly Singh. This is Lilly Singh's memoir, such a guidebook. It's more guide than memoir, honestly. It's a guide with interjections from Lily's life. If you don't know, Lilly Singh is a YouTuber. She's Superwoman here on YouTube, and she has like 10 million subscribers, around that number. So she's pretty popular, and like this is her guide on how to be a boss. I didn't love it. I enjoyed it because I like Lilly as a person, and like I like seeing like her talk about this, but I don't think I got too much out of it. I think this is the type of book where you like need to go in wanting to get something out of it, and I didn't really go in like that, so I didn't really get anything out of it, if that makes sense. If you're looking for like a self-help book that's gonna guide you and like give you actionable steps, I'm not sure that this is it, but it's just kind of like brain candy, if that makes sense, where it just like gives you stuff to mull over. I also read that book for the Ordinary Wizarding levels, and that book completed the challenge of reading a Muggle nonfiction book for the Muggle Studies class. The rest of these books were not read for the April-a-thon, and so the first of those books is Obsidio by Kristoff and Amie Kaufman. This is the third book in the Illuminae Files trilogy, which was one of my favorite trilogies of all time. I read the second book, which I just mentioned earlier, or reread it so I could read this book with it fresh in my mind. And I enjoyed this book a lot. It didn't blow me away. Illuminae stands a cut above the rest of the books in the series as like the best book in the series. I honestly still think, after having read the whole series, it's one of the best introductions to a series of all time. Obsidio is the last book. We're not talking about Illuminae. If you want a review of Illuminae, I do have one of those also. I'm not sure if I should do a full video review of Obsidio because it's been a month now since I read it. It was a little disappointing to me in the sense that it didn't blow me away like I said. So like there isn't so much for me to talk about in a review video, but if you want it, let me know and I'll see what I can do. But my basic overall thoughts were I like this better than Gemina. I gave this one 4.5 stars. This gave me the action adventure I was looking for and have come to expect from this series, so that was really good. I loved being able to see all the characters that I had previously fallen in love with, but one thing that I didn't appreciate so much was that this introduces 2 new characters who I just don't think had enough time to like be incorporated into the story, and I can see why they were added, but I didn't love them as much. This featured most of the stuff that I enjoyed from Illuminae and like none of the stuff that I didn't like from Gemina, so this was a good conclusion to the series. I definitely think the series is worth finishing if you were on the fence after reading Gemina. And Obsidio completed the astronomy challenge for the owls. That challenge was to read a sci-fi book. The next book that I read was The Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins. I listened to this book on audiobook and it was narrated by Claire Corbett, Louise Brealey, and India Fisher. The audiobook narration was like pretty okay, I guess. One of them really annoyed me. Basically, this follows a woman who takes the train into work every day, and while she's taking the train into work, she likes to look out onto the houses that are by the train tracks, and she makes up stories for the people who she sees outside of the houses. And then one day she sees something that is like off, and so she's trying to decide what to do about that. So I don't want to spoil this book for you, so I'm trying to leave out as much as possible because it is a thriller and like half the fun is finding out what's going on. So I will leave you with, I really enjoyed this book. I really enjoyed this thriller. I don't read a lot of thrillers, so take that for what you will. But I was invested and wanted to keep reading the entire time. I enjoyed most parts of the book except for one thing. Like I mentioned, there are 3 audiobook narrators, so we follow 3 perspectives, and the 3rd perspective was really annoying for me. I did not like her at all. I did not think she added to the story. None of the characters are particularly likable, but at least you can see why they're the way they are. This character was just awful for no reason, and it didn't really make sense, and that lowered my enjoyment, but she was also a smaller part of the story, so it didn't affect it too much. Like I still wanted to keep reading. The last book that I read in the month of April was The Nowhere Girls by Amie Reed, and this was my favorite book of the month by far. It was amazing. I loved it. This follows 3 girls. One is Mexican American, one is on the autism spectrum, and one has just moved to the other two's town after her family has been run out by the church in their old town, and they come together to like deal with the rape culture that is permeating this town and their school, and they form a club called the Nowhere Girls for all the girls in their school to come and just like talk about things. And I thought this was so well done. I loved it so much. I gave it 4.5 stars. I just really enjoyed it. I went into this book with almost no expectations, and it really just blew me away. I thought the characters were well fleshed out and well done. I felt sad and angry and happy alongside these characters and just felt every emotion that was going through these characters' heads as well. And I just thought it was, I don't know, I just loved it so much. I would have given it 5 stars except for one thing. As I said, one of the girls is on the autism spectrum, and me not being autistic, I can't say if that representation was well done. And I also thought that there were some things that happened or were directed towards her character that weren't challenged on the page, and I'm not sure that was treated well, and so that was a little questionable for me, so I knocked it down 0.5 star because otherwise I really did enjoy this book. I tried finding Own Voices reviews for this, but I couldn't find any. If you have any, leave them down below. I would recommend this for girls and boys in your life, non-binary people in your life, but I would especially recommend it for girls and non-binary people. Like for like a high school book club, I really think this gives a lot to think about and talk about. There is a trigger warning for rape and sexual assault in this book. That is a heavily discussed topic, so if you cannot deal with that, I would not recommend this book. Yeah, so those are all the books that I read in the month of April. As I said, The Nowhere Girls was by far my favorite. So let me know in the comments down below what book you read in April that was your favorite. If you haven't already, please be sure to give this video a thumbs up. In addition to commenting your favorite book of the month of April, if you have any opinions about any of the books that I've read, please be sure to also leave that in the comments down below. And if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to my channel because I make more videos where I talk about books. Again, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Bye!